It was the year 2000. I was on my non-commissioned officer's course in the Irish Army. I'd been awake for about 44 hours. I can't really remember. I was tired, my eyes hurt. It was my turn to be sentry. I was on duty. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was responsible for keeping an eye out. All of a sudden, I heard a whisper into my ear. "Are you awake, or are you asleep?" I went, I'm awake. No, you were asleep. I had fallen asleep involuntarily. I did not remember falling asleep, and I was actually dreaming that I was keeping a watch on this area. You laugh because it's happened to you. Fast forward 12 years. Now I was in Leadville, a small town 2 miles above sea level in the Colorado Rockies, and I was undertaking a 100-mile continuous run through the mountains. At about 27 hours into this run, I was starting to feel tired. It was dark, I was hungry, and I was feeling very, very sorry for myself. When I noticed this little dog running in front of me, or a coyote, I whistled at the dog and I called him back. He ran ahead and looked back at me as if to say, "Come on, keep coming." I ran after the dog, and eventually I got to the dog, and it was a tree stump. You see, after many hours of being awake, low amount of calories, I was starting to hallucinate, or what ultra-runners call bonking. I was starting to lose my mind. Fast forward now to 2017. Now I work with mining companies, oil and gas, rail, and so on, and I research with the Centre for Sleep Science at University of Western Australia with elite athletes in how we can use sleep for performance. So when we're awake, sleepiness increases over time, or what you may have heard being called sleep drive. And when we're awake for 17 hours or for 24 hours, we see a decline to our cognitive performance. Now, in our society, we can equate this with blood alcohol concentrate levels. We all know what 0.05% is. We wouldn't drive while intoxicated at this level, or we wouldn't operate machinery. When we're awake at 17 hours, it's the equivalent to being intoxicated to 0.05% in terms of our cognitive performance. And indeed, when we're awake for 24 hours, it's the equivalent of 0.08%. Now, you might think, but I take caffeine, I take sleeping tablets, I can trick that sleepiness. Well, unfortunately, you don't. All you're doing is masking the effects of sleepiness, or delaying sleepiness. The only true one cure for sleepiness is sleep, exactly. And what controls this, or what is responsible for this, is a little thing in the base of the hypothalamus in your brain called the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nuclei. Remember that as the body clock, which is responsible for regulation of your sleep and wake cycle. And more so, other parts of your body take cues from this cycle, such as the digestive system and the respiratory system also. So if this is out of sync, the rest of your body may be out of sync. Now, to synchronize this SCN, we need natural light or sunlight. This may explain when you travel overseas and you experience jet lag. This is a desynchronization of this SCN, or this body clock, which makes your stomach feel sore, or you're a bit moody, or a little bit tired when you travel. When we sleep, we go through a number of different sleep stages, and some of these you may have heard about. We break these out into 2 broad categories: REM sleep, rapid eye movement, and non-REM sleep. Now, we oscillate through these different stages of sleep throughout the night, and each of these stages is important for different things. Non-REM sleep is important for physical repair and recovery, and REM sleep is important for psychological repair and recovery, or giving your brain a reboot overnight. So now that we know this, what's the impact of sleep, or what's happening in our society? Well, here in Australia this year, the Sleep Health Foundation and Deloitte Access Economics released some staggering data. With 1 in 3 people not achieving enough sleep overnight, that's between 7 hours and 9 hours. Now, the real statistic there is actually 33%, but as an Irishman, I didn't want to say that, so hence I said 1 in 3. Now, the negative impact to our community from this lack of sleep is the fact that 394 Australians unfortunately lose their lives in our country due to road traffic accidents or industrial accidents each year due to lack of sleep. Now, if you never cared about the people, you may care about the money, because 18 billion, with a B, is lost each year in this country due to lost productivity due to poor sleep. That equates to about $2,500 per person. In shift work environments, we now see that the World Health Organization, since 2008, has determined that working shift work, in particular night shift, is a type 2A carcinogen. So what does that mean? It means that it's highly probable if you work permanent night shift that your risk of developing cancer increases significantly compared to those who don't. This is in the same group as anabolic steroids. We also see from research that when we work more than 10 hours per day or in a shift, that the risk increases to us and it may cause or lead to incidents and accidents in the workplace. Now, when we're working shift work, not all hours of wake or operation are equal. We can't treat people like machines. We don't get X amount of widgets per hour. And there is human variation across the day and indeed across the night. You can see that decline there in that graph. That's between midnight and 6 a.m. And if we've been awake during that time or experienced shift work, we'll know how our bodies function at this period. Now, you might think to yourself, I'm an executive or I'm a professional, I work in an office. This doesn't impact me. Well, it does. Sleep or lack of sleep does not discriminate. Working long hours, maybe travel for business, leads to jet lag, leads to a decline in cognitive performance, which leads to a decline in adequate business decision making. You may be using caffeine to keep you awake during the day, and indeed you may be using alcohol at nighttime as well to relax yourself, all of which can impact our sleep. Now, in some of the research I do, we've worked with some elite sporting athletes. Now, this is a player here hooked up to what we call polysomnography. Now, there's nothing wrong with him, he's completely fine, and he chose that blanket himself. But this is Ted Faulkner, who plays with the Wallabies as well, and this is what we use to determine sleep disorders, or how to assess the prevalence of sleep disorders. Remember I told you 1 in 5 people have a sleep disorder? Well, it's even more staggering. 1 in 3, there's that number again, or 33% of these athletes had a sleep disorder. So it's even higher in a population that we thought would not have these sleep disorders. In some of the data that we've collected, looking at the effect of evening games in Super Rugby competition on sleep, we find that after an evening game, that sleep is affected. Athletes don't go to sleep till maybe 2:30 in the morning. And then subsequently, sleep duration is reduced after that. So they don't stay in bed the next morning and actually achieve that sleep. They still wake up at their habitual early time. Now, we know that other things happen after games, such as socializing after a game, media commitments, but we also see as well this relationship with caffeine. So we see caffeine significantly increases before the game, during the game, and after the game, which also affects sleep, because caffeine has a half-life of 4 to 6 hours, which lines up perfectly with the time of the game and the time that these athletes fell asleep. So consuming caffeine late in the evening may affect your sleep. So now that we know this, what can we do about it? Well, there's 3 things we can take away from today. Number 1, are we getting enough sleep? Are we achieving 7 to 9 hours per night? Are we at risk of having a sleep disorder? Do we feel tired during the day? Are we not performing as well as we should be? Are we gaining weight? Are we moody? Are we irritable? Maybe we need to see a sleep physician, and maybe we need to do something about this. Do we plan for sleep, or is it just something we do when the day is over, that we passively achieve once work is done, families attended to, and so on? We plan for our kids to go to sleep, we have a bath time, relaxation, we read a story. Do we do the same thing as adults? Or do we simply drink that last drink of wine and jump straight into bed and expect to initiate sleep? Are we properly planning for our sleep? Are we optimizing our time of day? Did you know that between 9 and 12 o'clock in the morning is the best time to make cognitive decisions? Maybe that's a good time to go and see your boss about getting a raise. Are you doing early morning training sessions at 5:30, 6 o'clock before you go to work? Well, did you know that in the evening between 4 to 7 p.m. is the best time for cardiovascular performance and muscular strength? Maybe go to the gym after work and not before work. So if you truly want to be the superhero of your life, maybe the answer lies within your bed, and maybe the answer is sleep in and win. Thank you.